Hi again, everyone. So I'm just going to share a few images and one very short film that will help me explain my journey through the project to you. So as I saw it, my first goal in Flow Unlocked was to gain an understanding of how each of my co-creators relate to their environments and to other people in life generally, but also during the pandemic. And I did this at first just through the conversations we were having in the workshops, in the creative writing workshops, which were designed to explore different aspects of relationships through quite organic conversations. So some of the feelings expressed we all shared, and some, of course, were particular to individuals, and some represented more general autistic experiences. But certain traits resonated very strongly with the artist in me. For example, the interest in visual patterns and rhythms, and the pleasure in diving deep into these experiences, and the unbeatable joy one gets from a sense of connection, be it with the human or a found stone. So it made sense for me to begin my creative process with this most resonant idea. So taking the theme of visual rhythms, I spent my lockdown on the canal, meditating on the patterns I could find in there. And with the words of my co-creators in mind, I found myself seeing far beyond just the beautiful patterns and seeing metaphors everywhere. And some of the more painful experiences that people had described, such as the sense of isolation that comes from being rejected for your social differences, or the human connections that one desires, but that can be too unpredictable to navigate. And I was really taken by watching the canal and the stories that I could see in there when I really slowed down and got into the flow. So that, for me, was my first sense of a really powerful connection to what is a common neurodivergent experience. So I then put some of the words of from the poetry of my co-creators into my films that I've been making. So let me show you one I made with Danny's words.
In place of a panic attack, I hold your memory of me, glistening in morning light, and try to transform back to that. Try to transform back to that. I hold your memory of me, and try to transform back to that. And try to transform back to that. In place of a panic attack, I hold your memory of me, glistening in morning light, and try to transform back to that.
So in my next phase of making, I felt that I wanted to try and get a bit more of the human element into the visuals I was making. I began working just with photography, which is a medium I feel a bit freer to experiment in. I wanted to represent the interests and passions of my co-creators, which I didn't think was necessarily evident enough in the canal footage. So one thing that was came up a lot was people's relationships with animals, and so I began to focus on that. And you will have heard Danny's wonderful ode to the moth. So when I heard that, I wanted to photograph a moth. So this is an image I made, and it's now got Danny's handwriting written on top, and the words are, "I wish somebody would enter my world and understand it. Then we could go together to the wider world." We had lots of conversations about animals being non-judgmental and reassuring, and unthreatening in the way that the wider world of human interaction can be. This is an image I made with Benny, and that has his writing written on it, which says, "My stories are pieces of me, making sense of the strangeness of people, making sense of the strangeness of me." I love these words as a summary of really what we're trying to do in the project. Benny's at once speaking outwards to the audience and speaking from a very, very personal place of his own confusion in navigating the world. This is another one I made with Benny and Ramona, who is Benny's girlfriend, and you can see her reflected in the bubble there. And that was another sort of visual motif that came to my mind from what I'd learned within the group, as the representation of this bubble that had been referred to a bit is the bubble that an autistic person might live in. Is that a place they're forced to go by a society that pushes them out, or is it a comfortable, reassuring place that they choose to go? And it seems to be both things in different moments, perhaps. But Benny's bubble most certainly includes Ramona, who is very fundamental to his interactions with the world, because he often prefers not to speak, and he communicates in sign, and she speaks sign language and often translates for him. So the words on here say, "How strange that others cannot bear to be apart. How fragile their bonds must be." And this was Benny's poem referencing his feelings at the beginning of lockdown when he was separated from Ramona, but that he didn't struggle with that particularly because the relationship for him is so much based in communication more than physical proximity. And that was a real eye-opener for me, to think that two people who are so close could not miss each other in that situation, although I should say it was Benny not missing Ramona, but Ramona did struggle. So that was a very brief glimpse of some of the work I've made with my co-creators. And if you'd like to see more of my visual work, John's visual work, and the poetry, please go to flowunlocked.co.uk, where you can see and read a lot more about our project. Thank you all for listening, and get your questions ready, and we'll have a bit of a Q&A now.